And on guard for V.
Now ouvre les portes. Let the doors be open. It is my duty to lay upon the table, pursuant to subsection 8.2 of the Auditor General Act, 2 reports from the Auditor General of Canada. Conformément à l'article 108.
Pursuant to Standing Order 1083G, these reports are deemed permanently sent to the Standing Committee on Public Accounts.
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The Honourable Member for Cape Breton, Canso.
Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking today in honor of Cape Breton historian and storyteller extraordinaire Jim St. Clair, who passed away earlier this month. For 30 years, we heard Jim's compelling stories of Cape Breton folklore and history across CBC Radio's Information Morning in Cape Breton. Like many across my community, I love listening to Jim on CBC, where his talent for storytelling taught us so much about our rich history in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and the entire Atlantic region. On behalf of Cape Breton Canso constituents and members of this House, I offer my sincere condolences to his family and loved ones. And I have no doubt that Jim's legacy will be a strong one in Cape Breton. He will greatly be missed by all who knew him, and of course his listeners. And it's my hope that we can carry forward Jim's passion for storytelling and use it as a tool to learn from the past to better help today. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Prince Albert.
Last week, the Cloverdale wildfire devastated over 5,000 or less than 14,000 acres of my riding and took 3 days to contain. Without the swift response of our fire departments and the bravery of our firefighters in the face of very dry and windy conditions, the damage could have been much worse. Their excellent work undoubtedly saved lives and homes. On behalf of the people of the riding of Prince Albert, I would like to thank all the first responders to the Cloverdale fire, the volunteers, supporting agencies, who all work together to support our community during this uncertain and frightening times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député d'Orléans.
Honourable Member for Orleans.
I had the pleasure of joining small business owners from the Art of Orleans BIA to host a town hall and discuss the crucial measures our federal government is bringing in to spur growth. Through an engaging evening discussion, these local leaders shared their thoughts and their enthusiasm they have for the future of Canada's small businesses as we look ahead to the end of the pandemic. I was happy to discuss what the budget means for Canada's main streets, how it would help them keep their employees on or hire new ones, and what digital adoption can do to help their businesses in Orléans continue to grow and thrive. I would like to thank the Heart of Orleans BIA for their outstanding work, as well as to all the attending business owners for sharing their continuing strength as we approach the end of this crisis. Merci.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday was the start of the 45th edition of the literary festival Salon du Livre de l'Abitibi-Témiscamingue, and this year it was 100% online. Now, if you're wondering if the great François Gendron will be doing an interview next Saturday on the Salon du Livre's Facebook page, the answer is yes. Mr. Gendron will be presenting his book, 42 Years of Passion for the Regions of Quebec, which was written in collaboration with Samuel Larochelle, a prolific young author from my region. As you may recall, François Gendron was first elected in 1976 and re-elected 10 times. He sat as an MNA for 42 years, directed 11 ministries, and obtained the prestigious titles of Deputy Premier of Quebec and Speaker of the National Assembly. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my mentor, François, for always having led by example and for his passion for this region and its people, whom I represent today. It's a region that is still called La Gendronie in his honor. Thank you for your continuing contributions.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to pay tribute to Émilie Gagné. During the pandemic, the principal of Saint-Colette School in Bourassa called on Ms. Gagné. 5- and 6-year-old children were starting to show some signs of learning difficulties. They were squinting. They were holding their papers close to their faces. It turned out that these children had vision problems. This school serves children whose parents are asylum seekers, and they haven't yet received their health insurance cards. Ms. Gagné, who is an optician by training and whose 2 children also attend the school, brought together professionals, volunteers, and sponsors in order to give the children eye exams. Mr. Speaker, over 20% of those students needed glasses. Ms. Gagné provided 21 students with free glasses, free of charge, to facilitate their learning and encourage their academic success. On behalf of the parents, the school administration, and myself, I want to thank Émilie Gagné for this exceptional act of generosity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the life of one of the most upbeat advocates I've ever known. Petronella Peach, or Nell as most knew her, immigrated from Holland. Nell was born during World War II and often spoke of her love for Canada and our role in liberating the Netherlands in 1945. Throughout her lifetime, Nell took on many challenges with a positive attitude and a strong voice for all those facing similar challenges. Nell was a breast cancer survivor, and as she put it, a person living with diabetes. For almost 40 years, Nell met diabetes head-on and became one of Canada's strongest advocates for diabetics. Whether talking to people on the streets or participating in international team diabetes marathons, Nell continuously worked to raise the awareness of diabetes. Nell was a volunteer extraordinaire and will be remembered for how much she cared for people and for her community. Our thoughts go out to Nell's husband, Gordon, and her family and friends. Nell, you will be missed.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Speaker, it is an honor to congratulate my constituent and a true community builder, Mrs. Lamia Dib, on the 50th anniversary of her outstanding local business, Metro Dry Cleaners. In 1958, Lamia came from Lebanon to join her siblings in Canada. In 1962, she married Maurice Dib, and together they saved every penny to purchase a dry cleaning machine. They worked very hard to establish themselves as leaders in the industry in Ottawa. Since Maurice's passing in 2001, Lamia and her family continue to provide exceptional service to a multitude of clients. Metro Dry Cleaners has served 3 prime ministers, MPs, MPPs, our mayor, and countless local residents looking for consistent, high-quality work and always a friendly smile at the counter. To Lamia and her family, congratulations on 50 years of excellence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This month, Cambridge has lost a great Canadian, Dave Sofa. Dave is an incredible artist who memorialized the 158 Canadian Forces personnel who lost their lives in Afghanistan through his iconic painting, Portraits of Honor. Dave was a community builder, teacher, and a dedicated volunteer, and he wanted to share his art and spread a message of love and commemoration for our troops. And Mr. Speaker, he succeeded. His artwork took him all across Canada. Dave was recently honored with the Governor General's Service Medal. He received a Minister of Veterans Affairs Commendation, the Kinsman Hal Rogers Fellowship, the Rotary Paul Harris Fellowship, the Kiwanis Walter Zeller Fellowship. Dave has left a lasting impact on our community and Canadians across the country. As Chair of Veterans Affairs and as a friend, I thank you, Dave. We will miss you.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor a well-respected, world-renowned Chinese-Canadian artist, Professor Johnson St. Chu Chao, who contributed significantly to the cultural mosaic of Canada. He just passed away at the age of 98. I've known Professor Chao for many years. In fact, his calligraphy of a Chinese classical piece on governance is still hanging in my office as a constant reminder of his kindness, talents, and humbleness. As the founder of the Chinese-Canadian Artists Federation and a dedicated educator at UBC and overseas, he donated generously his artwork to many charities. Professor Chao's passion in the classics, calligraphy, and landscape won him many awards. He once said, quote, "Since I moved to Canada in 1980, I refused to do anything else, such as making a fortune. My aspiration for life is to promote the traditional Chinese art and culture to the world." Our condolences to Frank, Jackie, and the Chow family. Professor Chow will be greatly missed.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This last long weekend was a busy one for Sherbrooke and for Moisson Estrie, a food redistribution organization that helps financially vulnerable people. Dr. Sébastien Roulier ran again this year as part of the fundraiser Avançons en Cœur, raising money for Moisson Estrie. He followed a course that was shaped like a four-leaf clover. He ran over 420 kilometers over the course of 4 days, which went around the four corners of the eastern townships. I was there when he started the race on Friday morning, and I can tell you that he was on fire. So I want to congratulate everyone on this fundraiser. There was a lot of non-perishable food that was collected. My team and I participated by collecting over 100 paper bags from generous households. Thank you.
Member for Banff Airdrie.
Cette semaine est la semaine de tourisme.
This week is Tourism Week. We'll be celebrating one of Canada's major industries, tourism.
Unfortunately, it's not to celebrate significant milestones like in the past, such as record-breaking visitor numbers or another new award. Instead, we celebrate the spirit that this great industry has to survive and persist, despite the great challenges that the pandemic and the lackluster government response has placed upon it. Tourism was one of the first hit by the pandemic and will likely be the last to recover. But when it does, I know that it will be better than ever, showcasing Canada's breathtaking sights and great attractions. Prior to the pandemic, it was one of the fastest growing industries, making up 2% of Canada's GDP and 1 of every 11 jobs. And I know that post-recovery, those numbers will only continue to grow. So as we mark Tourism Week, we all need to show our tangible support for the employees and small business owners that make up this important sector. Bon semaine.
Happy Tourism Week.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Throughout history, Jews have experienced ongoing anti-Semitism with waves of pogroms, expulsions, and genocide around the world. There are intergenerational sensibilities that this history carries. Canada, too, once added to their plight when, on the eve of World War II, 907 Jewish refugees aboard the MS St. Louis were refused entry into Canada. 254 would later face death and the atrocities of Nazi concentration camps. Lately, our country has seen a spike of hate and intimidation against Jewish communities. There is no place in Canada for vandalism of synagogues, violence, or threats against people just because of their race or religion. No one should have to live in fear because of their cultural identity. Never again means standing against anti-Semitism whenever it rears its ugly head, starting in our own backyard, right here in Canada.
Here, here, here.
The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, in Canada, women veterans who are unhoused are invisible. A report from Canada in 2015 noted that veteran women experience much higher rates of homelessness. Women who served our country deserve much better than this. One of the biggest gaps is the lack of investment in Canadian-specific research. The voices of these veterans must be heard, and the support should better reflect their needs. One woman veteran said, "I never thought I would be living in a van." When we look at what is happening to the women in our military today, when we look at the fact that this government still supports the Gold Diggers Clause, sexist legislation from the early 1900s that was created to protect old male veterans from predatory young women who were marrying them for their pensions, when now this results in spouses, largely women, who marry veterans over 60, living with them well over 20 years, not receiving a penny when their loved one passes. Women who serve deserve better in Canada. Today, I acknowledge the silenced voices of our women veterans. The government must do better.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to highlight the 100th anniversary of the town of de Montagne in my riding. Formerly known as Saint-Eustache-sur-le-Lac, the town of Montagne was founded on August 18th, 1921. You probably know that de Montagne is known for its rapid transit project. But did you know that it also takes its name from the two mountains that the coureurs du bois could see? One of them is Cavalry Mountain in Oka, and the other is Saint-Joseph-du-Lac. I was once involved as the director of the Polyvalente de Montagne, and I've personally experienced the wonderful community spirit that exists in this town. Today, de Montagne is undergoing rapid development. It's well located, it's welcoming, and it's overflowing with wonderful green spaces. It's an ideal suburban town for families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and happy 100th anniversary.
For Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
It's an honor to rise today and pay tribute to the late and lamented Justice John Gomery. Known for his patience, Justice Gomery served as a lawyer and judge for 50 years when his name rose to national prominence after his appointment as commissioner for the inquiry into the sponsorship scandal. The months-long inquiry looked into allegations of fraud related to liberal-friendly advertising firms being paid millions of dollars for little to no work. In the face of constant attacks from the Liberal government and its supporters, Justice Gomery stood unwavering and resolved to seek the truth in the name of the public interest. His findings of clear political involvement, secrecy, subversion, and insufficient oversight demonstrated that the government had betrayed Canadians' trust. Because of his commitment to truth and justice, Canadians now expect that the bar of accountability and ethics within government to be held to a high standard. On behalf of Conservatives, I wish to express my condolences to the family and to thank Justice Gomery for his unquestionable legacy and protecting the public's confidence in their democratic institutions.
The honourable member for Kings Hants.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to call Nova Scotia home. Is Vukvor ar canon an agus ar culter Gaelic, Aunan Awapanui. The month of May is Mias Nan Gael, and to recognize it, I wanted to ensure this historic chamber can hear the language once again, even if for only 1 minute. Awapanuag is the only region outside of Scotland where Gaelic language and traditions are passed down within families and communities. Hardworking community members, dedicated volunteers, local institutions, and our tradition bearers continue to ensure that the language and Gaels, as a unique ethnic-cultural group, continue to contribute to the life of our province. At the time of Confederation, Gaelic was the largest non-official language spoken in the country, and there have been several MPs who have spoken fluent Gaelic in the House, including a relative of mine, MP Samuel McDonnell, whose father was raised in Kings Hants. To all those who are working hard to ensure that Gaels, their language and culture, continue to contribute to Canadian society, I would like to say this. Tapalev Gamor Hashin Adol Erj La Heila. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in order to work at the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg, you need a security clearance. In order to work with human pathogens like Ebola in that lab, you need a higher level of security clearance. Can the Prime Minister tell this House how a person with deep connections to the Chinese military obtained a high-level Canadian security clearance?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the two scientists in question are no longer employed by the Public Health Agency of Canada. We cannot disclose additional information nor comment further for privacy reasons and confidentiality. But the National Microbiology Laboratory continues to play a critical role in protecting the health and safety of Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister can't comment on his failure to keep our country safe. For years, Canada's security services have been warning the government and universities about the risks of research cooperation with Communist China. This government needed to escort two scientists they had approved to work at our most senior lab in the country. Will the Prime Minister today rise in this House and commit to ending all partnerships with China's Academy of Military Medical Sciences?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
We are committed to supporting open, collaborative research while also protecting our research, our national security, and our economic interests. In March, we announced we'd be taking further steps to better integrate national security considerations into the evaluation of federally funded research projects. That builds on the work of our Research Security Working Group and will protect Canadian knowledge and intellectual property and ensure international research partnerships are always beneficial to Canada and Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister's Research Security Working Group is not working, Mr. Speaker. Right. International experts have warned about China's developing capacity in bioweapons. They've also warned that any academic working in China is available to the state for military and defense purposes. This would include the scientists that his government approved to work at our high security lab in Winnipeg. Will the Prime Minister commit today to increasing security at the National Microbiology Lab? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Foreign interference pose real threats to Canadian research security, intellectual property, and business interests. This is a threat that our government has always taken seriously. In March, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry requested the development of specific rules that integrate national security considerations into research partnerships. Public Safety and CSIS are leading outreach to universities to help them keep research safe. Canadian universities and research organizations must remain vigilant to protect their IP, and we haven't hesitated to support them.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Always takes our security seriously, Mr. Speaker, from a Prime Minister caught in cash for access fundraisers with Chinese leaders in his first year as Prime Minister. The Prime Minister reversed a decision to block a sale of ONET Communications, a firm that had contracts with the Pentagon and our closest allies. A Prime Minister that refuses to take a stand on Huawei, the only Five Eyes country that has not acted. And how many days have the two Michaels been in prison, Mr. Speaker? So I'll ask the Prime Minister again, will he commit, after this serious breach of our security at the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg, will he commit to ending all partnerships with the Chinese National Military Medical Institute?
Honourable Prime Minister.
We have always taken this threat seriously. Public safety officials have met with more than 34 universities to help them keep their research safe. In 2020, CSIS engaged more than 225 different organizations, including universities, to ensure they were aware of foreign threats. The Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry in March requested the development of specific guidelines that incorporate national security into the evaluation of any research partnerships.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
For years now, Canada's security services warned the government and universities about the risks of cooperation with the communist regime of China. And yet, 2 scientists were escorted out of our high-security laboratory. And that's what it took to take the threat seriously. Will we be ending the partnership with the Military Medical Institute in China? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Espionage and foreign interference are real threats to research. Our government takes these threats seriously. In March, specific rules were developed to take into account national security when making partnerships for international research. Public Safety and CSIS are liaising with universities to help them protect their work, and Canadian universities and research organizations must always remain vigilant and will always be there to support them.
Honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Québécois et le Premier ministre ont...
Quebecers and the Prime Minister are aware of the motion that the Bloc Québécois will be tabling soon. The Prime Minister has certainly understood that we want to remain collaborative and that there's no elements that will be alarming from a constitutional or legal point of view. There's no controversy. After reading the Bloc Québécois motion, will the Liberal Party support the affirmation that Quebec's nation is francophone during the tabling of this motion? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are looking forward to have this motion before the House in an hour. I will remind the member for Belleuil-Chambly of what this House declared in 2006, that this House recognizes that Quebecers are a nation within a united Canada, and that remains our position. The Honourable Member from Belleuil-Chambly. I made sure to make the motion public this morning, but I will note the reference of the Liberal Prime Minister and the gestures of the Conservative Party. It is with openness and prudence that this motion was released. These words were carefully chosen. It takes up the terms of the Constitution Act of 1982 because there's a broad consensus in Quebec about this strong affirmation about the nation of Quebec and French being its only official language. Can Quebec count on the support of the Prime Minister, the Honourable Prime Minister? Quebecers and all Canadians who speak French will be able to count on this government to protect their rights, to protect their culture, to protect the identity of Quebecers and Canadians. We will always be there. As we have already done, we've recognized the nation of Quebec within a united Canada. We will always work to protect French all throughout Canada, including in Quebec, while ensuring the respect of linguistic minorities, especially the Anglophone linguistic minority in Quebec. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Of the pandemic, there are many sectors that are still shut down and many workers that can't go back to work. There are nearly 2 million Canadians that are relying on the CRB to put food on the table and to pay their bills. Despite this Prime Minister is going to cut the help that these families need by $800 a month starting in July and August. Will the Prime Minister commit today to reversing this decision to cut help to families who are still in need of support?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of this pandemic, we made a straightforward promise to Canadians that we would be there to have their backs, whatever it took, for as long as it took. And that will absolutely continue. Our income supports have helped buffer the worst economic impacts and help Canadians put food on the table. To get Canadians through the pandemic, Budget 2021 proposes to extend the Canada Recovery Benefit up to 50 weeks and the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit up to 42 weeks. But at the same time, we are helping Canadians get back into the labour market through the Canada Recovery Hiring Program and by creating almost 500,000 new jobs and training opportunities. We will have Canadians' backs as we recover this economy.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Cutting the help that people need by $800 a month is not having their backs. On top of that, we know that this pandemic has been difficult to people. It hasn't been hard on banks. Banks took public money from the government. They turned around and made billions of dollars in profits. And now on top of that, they're increasing their service fees in a pandemic. That is outrageous. And what is even worse is this Prime Minister is letting the banks do that. This Prime Minister and the federal government have the power to limit the fees they charge, has the power to stop them. So why is this Prime Minister allowing banks to gouge Canadians in a pandemic?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
While financial institutions make decisions on bank fees independently from the government, we've been clear in our discussions with these institutions that Canadians are going through a difficult time and we must all have their backs. Government's top priority is supporting Canadians during this pandemic. That's why we put in place new income support programs, including the CERB and the recovery benefits and expanded EI. We are focused on making life more affordable for Canadians and making sure that the wealthiest pay their fair share.
L'honorable député de Charbot-Haute-Saint-Charles.
Monsieur le Président, toutes les actions.
Mr. Speaker, all the actions of this government are done in secret. The Prime Minister refuses to inform Canadians about allegations of sexual misconduct in the military, contracts signed with the Liberal Friends, and now a threat to national security. The Prime Minister has given access to research information, including deadly virus samples, to the Chinese military. The Prime Minister has created a very dangerous situation for Canadian national security. Can you tell us how many scientists with ties to the Chinese government are working in our Canadian laboratories? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, for reasons of confidentiality and privacy, we cannot provide more information or comment. The National Microbiology Laboratory continues to play an essential role in protecting the health and safety of Canadians. We are determined to support open and collaborative research while protecting our national security and our economic interests. In March, we announced that we will take new measures to better support national security while evaluating research projects funded by the Government of Canada. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister had promised an open and transparent government, but there's another example that shows that he never had any intention of honouring that promise. Canadians need answers about this threat to national security. 2 scientists with ties to the communist regime shared top-secret research information from the Winnipeg lab with the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Both scientists were subsequently fired. So if the Prime Minister agrees with them being dismissed, can he also agree that such information sharing with the Communist government is wrong? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, we will always take this threat seriously. Resources have been granted to 34 universities to help them protect their privacy and their research. 225 different organizations, including universities, will make sure that they are aware of foreign threats. We've seen a significant increase of anti-Asian racism recently, and I hope that my colleagues of the Conservative Party are not trying to raise undue concerns about Canadians of Asian origin. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, that's the easiest Liberal defense, to attack us and call us racists, as we're talking about the Chinese communist regime that has nothing to do with Canada's China's population. What we want to know is, are there still scientists who are secretly working for the Chinese regime's interests in Canada's laboratories? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the international scientific community collaborates with researchers from different countries and different origins. We've known for some time that diversity is our strength as a country, especially when it comes to scientific research. We will always make sure that we do more to protect the integrity of our research institutions and to protect data. However, we will never permit intolerance towards those of other countries just because they look different. We will always be there to protect diversity.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
The Prime Minister says that he takes these threats seriously, but he's not giving serious answers. He should be able to say that scientists that are sponsored by the Chinese military and the Chinese government will not be allowed in these facilities. So will the Prime Minister ditch the script and ditch the woke talking points and answer yes or no? Will he bar scientists that are sent here from the Chinese government and the Chinese military from accessing sensitive Canadian research facilities?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past number of years, we have taken significant steps to strengthen security around our sensitive institutions, particularly our universities and research facilities. We will continue to ensure that the work that is done there is protecting Canada's interests and Canadians in general. We will always ensure that we're working with our security agencies to keep Canadians safe, and we will not give in to pandering to anti-Asian racism. We've seen enough of a rise in intolerance across the country these past months. We need to continue to stand strong in supporting diversity.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, the Prime Minister says that he's working with our security agencies, but it's CSIS that called for the security clearances of these scientists to be revoked. This is not anything other than this government's failure to do its due diligence and protect Canadians from real threats of viruses that could wipe out an entire population. So will the Prime Minister tell Canadians why these scientists, who represent the highest risk to our national security, were given clearance to work in these labs? And what's he covering up? Why is he protecting them now?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the 2 scientists in question are no longer employed by the Public Health Agency of Canada, and of course we cannot disclose additional information nor comment further for privacy reasons and confidentiality. We will continue to ensure that we are both welcoming of the international scientific community in advancing the knowledge that will help us understand not just this pandemic, but how to build a better future for everyone in Canada and around the world, while at the same time working with CSIS and our security agencies to keep Canadians safe, while at the same time standing strongly against intolerance.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
And the Prime Minister told us that they're partnering with the universities. These are the same universities that are partnering with Huawei. Huawei that this Prime Minister, unlike all of the other Five Eyes nations, have banned. What is with this Prime Minister's admiration for the Chinese Communist Party, for their basic dictatorship, for their interest in our intellectual property? What is this Prime Minister trying to hide? Is it his connections with the Chinese Communist Party that has him again protecting these individuals?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We will continue to ensure that our institutions and our networks are kept safe and secure. An examination of 5G technologies and review of security and economic considerations is ongoing. We will carefully weigh these matters with our allies and partners, and we will make the best decisions for Canadians. We will move forward and at the same time stand against anti-Asian racism, stand up for diversity, and stand against intolerance.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ça fait des...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For decades, cultural and media communities have been waiting for Ottawa to reform the CRTC and force digital giants to do their part. Quebec's cultural sector has waited long enough. Bill C-10 must be passed before the end of the session, here and in the Senate. The leader of the Bloc Québécois has offered the government the highest level of cooperation possible. Our leader has offered the same level of cooperation to his counterpart on the other side. The Bloc Québécois' hand is outstretched, and will the Prime Minister finally take it and pass C-10? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We're very pleased with the cooperation we've had with various parties to advance the protection of our artists and cultural sectors. There's debates held in this House, but we also have to act to protect Canadian content, to protect content creators, in a world that is ever more digital. We are enthusiastic about the cooperation of members in this House who want to work together to protect our artists and continue to ensure a strong cultural sector for our economy. The Honourable Member for Drummond. It's music to our ears to hear these great intentions, but it seems the Liberals don't understand the important role they have to play in advancing this work. They're the ones who decide what gets put on the legislative calendar and who delayed the committee appearances of 2 ministers. And meanwhile, the future of French arts and culture is at stake. That's why the Bloc Québécois has reached out to solve this problem quickly. The cultural community wants an answer. When will the Prime Minister take the Bloc Québécois' offer to pass C-10? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-10 means to ensure better rules for content creators and web giants. They will have to contribute financially to creating Canadian stories and content and allow different audiences to discover our culture. We will continue to work diligently and enthusiasm to protect the Canadian cultural sector and Quebec's cultural sector, as we have always done since we came to power in 2015.
For Lethbridge. The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Quote, our government supports an open internet where Canadians have the power to communicate freely and have access to the legal content of their choice. Seems like a good idea. That's a quote from the Liberal Justice Minister in 2017. But sadly, Bill C-10 does the exact opposite. It actually takes choice away from Canadians by dictating the content that they should and should not view online. It's sneaky, it's controlling, and it's wrong. So why is the Prime Minister insisting on regulating the internet?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Justice Canada's analysis confirms that Bill C-10 remains consistent with the Charter's guarantee of freedom of expression. C-10 aims to level the playing field between creators and web giants. It requires big, powerful foreign streamers to provide information on their revenues in Canada, financially contribute to Canadian stories and music, and make it easier for individuals to discover our culture. The bill explicitly says that obligations apply to web giants only, not Canadian users. Web giants have gone unregulated for far too long. Our government has chosen action over reaction.
Member for Lethbridge.
The Prime Minister insists on misleading the House and thereby the Canadian public. In 2017, the Prime Minister, however, was committed to defending this concept of net neutrality, which of course is the principle that internet users should have equal access to all sites, all content, and all applications without blocking or giving preference. Now he wants to put an internet czar in place in order to promote some creators and demo others. It's wrong. With Bill C-10, the Prime Minister is turning Canada into the most digitally regressive democracy in the world. Why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, in 2017, the Conservatives demonstrated they didn't understand net neutrality, and they certainly don't understand it now. Bill C-10 seeks to promote Canadian music, storytelling, and creative works. It does not affect the work and activities of internet service providers in Canada. It has no impact on Canada's commitment to net neutrality.
Member for Lethbridge.
Wow, I thought the Prime Minister was going to mansplain net neutrality there for a moment, but it looks like he doesn't even understand the definition because he couldn't define it. The Prime Minister tries to mislead Canadians by saying that Bill C-10 is against web giants and it's about promoting Canadian artists and content. So let's have some fun. Do a little quiz. There's a movie. It's called Ultimate Gretzky. It's about none other than Canadian-born Wayne Gretzky, who is often described as the greatest hockey player ever. It's also filmed largely in Canada. So through the chair to the Prime Minister, is this movie Canadian enough to pass as Canadian content?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For many years, Canada has put in place measures to support and promote Canadian content, to create the kind of film and production industry that led to the creation of many of the great content like what the honourable member is talking about. The fact is we made choices to highlight and privilege Canadian content over foreign content. That is exactly what we're going to continue to do and give the tools to the CRTC to do in an increasingly digital world to make sure we continue to find and tell and share stories of Canadians, great Canadians like Wayne Gretzky.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Well, that was embarrassing. A whole lot of ums and ahs and a few stumbles, and yet isn't able to define Canadian content. Likes to talk about it a lot, though. Let's talk a little bit more about Canadian creators, shall we? Brian Wiley from Calgary, an expert gamer who has over 1 million followers on Twitch. Or how about Montrealer Kiana Gomez, who created a whole business using TikTok? Sadly, these self-made creators just aren't Canadian enough in order to be considered artists by the Liberals. Bill C-10 will punish them, demote them, prevent them from being further successful. Why is the Prime Minister hell-bent on punishing these ingenuitive creators?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what we have demonstrated from the very beginning of our time in office in 2015 is that we are there to support Canadian content, Canadian creators right across the country, particularly after a Conservative government that did nothing but attack culture, attack content creators, and limit the cultural industries in this country. We will continue to stand up for producers and content creators of great Canadian content right across the country. This Bill C-10 is about giving the CRTC the tools to do just that in a world where people don't only get their Canadian content from CBC or CTV or on the radio. We need to make sure we continue to support Canadian content. That's exactly what we're going to do. No surprise the Conservatives don't get it.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
We are still in the midst of a third wave of COVID-19, and things are pretty scary. A surge in COVID-19 cases in Manitoba has overwhelmed the hospitals, and they're now sending patients to Ontario. We've learned that many of the cases come from workplace transmission, which isn't a surprise. We've long known that workplace transmission is a concern. That's why New Democrats fought to bring in paid sick leave. The problem is, it isn't working. Will the Prime Minister commit to fixing the federal paid sick leave program so we can save lives in Manitoba and across the country?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we made a commitment at the beginning of this pandemic to have Canadians back, whatever it took, for as long as it took. And part of that was moving forward on sick leave. We brought in a federal sick leave program that people could apply to, particularly those who are gig workers, who are self-employed, who don't have access to the kinds of sick leave through their employers that many jurisdictions do. But we recognize that the best way to deliver sick leave is through your employer, to be able to call in, say, I can't come in today, today. I might be coming down with COVID, and the employer would be able to continue to give them their paycheck and their support. But that has to happen through the province. So we did our part from the federal side. We need to make sure that provinces do their part as well.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Le Président.
The president of Laurentian University has had several meetings with the Liberal government to share the poor financial situation of that university. This situation was caused by COVID-19, and in spite of this, the Liberals refused to help. Why did the Prime Minister refuse to save Laurentian University? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're always going to be there to defend Canadians, particularly those who are a linguistic minority, and that's what we're going to continue to do. We have to have post-secondary education for Francophones in Ontario. They are at the heart of people who are in more minority settings, and we're following this file closely, and we're ready to cooperate to make sure that Northern Ontarians do have access to a quality post-secondary institution. And we recognize that this is provincial jurisdiction, but we will be a partner to work with the province of Ontario to ensure that there are quality services for Francophones.
For Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, over a year ago, Canada was hit with a deadly COVID-19 pandemic. Canadians faced daunting challenges. Our government supported us, and we banded together. Sadly, some chose to sow fear for partisan gains. Contrary to the Conservative health critic, we received our first COVID-19 vaccines in 2020, not 2030, and all will have access to vaccines by September 21. Canadians need to remain positive and hopeful. Can Prime Minister roll out dates to dispel this fear-mongering?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable doctor colleague from Vancouver Centre is absolutely right. Our plan is working. I'd like to share some important dates to remember. December 13th, 2020, the first vaccines touched down at Pearson Airport. December 14th, 2020, the first shot was administered. And of this weekend, May 22nd, 2021, more than 50% of Canadians have received their first dose. That number is going to keep going up fast because millions more doses are coming. It's clear that working together as one big team, Canada, is paying off.
Hear, hear. I just want to remind the honourable members that under the COVID conditions where we have people joining us virtually, we don't have the numbers to absorb the sound in the chamber. So when they shout and speak, it's like they're talking directly to the person. So just maybe, if they're going to heckle, maybe do it respectfully with a lower tone. L'honorable.
The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we were stunned to hear the Minister of Heritage say that Bill C-10 in no way restricts net neutrality. Yet, the Liberal government in Bill C-10 gives more power to the CRTC to regulate social media, blogs, online gaming sites, apps, and even audiobooks. This is a very simple question for the Prime Minister. Does he believe that regulating these platforms is consistent with the principle of net neutrality? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we saw in the past that the Conservatives don't understand net neutrality, and they don't understand it still today. Bill C-10 is to promote creative arts that are Canadian. It does not affect the work and activities of internet suppliers in Canada, so there's no impact in Canada in terms of net neutrality. The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, I ask the Prime Minister to look at the dictionary definition of net neutrality, then he'll know what it is. And the Minister of Justice said on May 22nd that our government supports net neutrality, where all Canadians have the power to express themselves freely and have access to legal content of their choice. Mr. Speaker, you can't be for net neutrality and then implement a bill that restricts it. So, is the Prime Minister siding with his Minister of Justice, who is defending net neutrality, or his Heritage Minister, who is attacking freedom of expression on the Internet? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate to see the Conservatives attacking, once again, the cultural industry in Canada. The Justice Canada analysis does confirm that Bill C-10 is in line with the Charter of Freedoms, and this bill wants to normalize the rules between web giants and Canadian creators. It will require foreign broadcasters to provide information about their income and to finance Canadian stories and content and to discover our culture. That's what we're always going to seek to do. The member for Richmond-Arthabaska, in an internal memo given to the Minister of Heritage by senior officials, it was clearly stated that applications such as YouTube, TikTok, Amazon Prime, NHL TV, MLB TV, RDS Direct, Sportsnet Now, Google Play, Cineplex, PlayStation, and many others will be subject to CRTC rules. Can the Prime Minister tell us if he really thinks it is a good idea to regulate all of these applications? Yes or no? Just yes or no. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, despite these attacks against Quebec and Canadian creators, we are supporting people online, and this will never be considered. They will never be considered broadcasters under this legislation. The rules that apply to web giants will not be applicable to Canadian users, and this is clearly stated out in Clause 2.1 of the bill. So why are the Conservatives focusing on this? Because they don't want to support the cultural industry in Canada. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the Prime Minister, he did not read Bill C-10, unfortunately. He did not follow the work at committee, because if he had done so, he would have seen that 4.1 clearly says that the government is attacking freedom of expression by legislating in this respect. All these applications, well, that were covered, they come from an internal memo from the officials. So the Prime Minister has to do his homework. He has to look at the documentation and stop attacking the freedom of expression of all Canadians and stop trying to get people to believe that the Conservatives are against culture. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers and all Canadians have seen for quite some time what's happening in this House, and today we can rally together, the Liberal Party, the NDP, and the Bloc, to support Canadian content creators. This says long about the Conservatives' position that is once again attacking Quebec culture and Canadian culture and this industry that allows us to thrive and develop so many jobs across the country. We're going to continue to be there to support the cultural industry, our artists, even though the Conservatives aren't doing this, because they're attacking culture here in Canada. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's decision to only increase old age pensions for those who are over 75 continues to cause anger. Today, Seniors Associations FADOC, the Canadian Association of Retirees, and the National Association of Federal Retirees all denounced the creation of two classes of seniors. I quote the president of FADOC, Gisèle Tassé-Goodman, who said, "Financial insecurity does not discriminate between people based on their age." Mr. Speaker, all seniors deserve an increase in their pension starting at age 65. Will the Prime Minister correct this now that he sees they're creating two classes of seniors and it's not working? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, we've always been there for seniors and we're going to continue to be so. We increased the GIS by 10% for the most vulnerable seniors, and that was one of the first things we did when we came to power in 2015. And since, we've continued to be there to support seniors who are the most vulnerable and who have faced challenges. And that is why we recognize that as seniors get older, they face greater costs. So we're going to increase by 10% the old age pension for seniors 75 years of age and over. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Some people are being forgotten. Everyone agrees that pensions must be increased for everyone 65 and over. The FADOC, the Canadian Association of Retirees, and the National Association of Federal Retirees are calling for this today. All parties in this House are demanding it. Everyone agrees, except the Liberal Party. The Prime Minister is isolated. He is the only one insisting on creating two classes of seniors. People who built Quebec and Canada deserve to be properly supported. When will the Prime Minister finally listen to reason, join the consensus, and increase pensions for all seniors? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we've been there for seniors and we will continue to be so. We recognize that there are many seniors who are concerned about their pension and their savings. People are living longer now, which is a very good thing, but we recognize that from 75 years and over, there are additional costs, and that is why increasing OAS for those who are 75 years and over is a good thing. We're going to continue to support them and to invest to help seniors with housing and health insurance and to support them throughout their senior years.
Portage Lisker.
Mr. Speaker, we have a problem in this country when operatives who are part of the communist China regime are allowed into our very sensitive labs here in Canada, specifically in Winnipeg. And we have even a greater problem when our Prime Minister doesn't realize how dangerous that is. So again, will he commit today to ending research cooperation with Chinese communist military?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can confirm that the two scientists in question are no longer employed by the Public Health Agency of Canada. We cannot disclose additional information nor comment further for privacy reasons and confidentiality. But we are committed to supporting open, collaborative research while also protecting our research, national security, and economic interests. In March, we announced we would take further steps to better integrate national security considerations into the evaluation of federally funded research projects. We will continue to work with all our intelligence agencies to keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Portage Lisker.
Well, the problem is, and the Prime Minister maybe does not realize this, is communist China cannot be trusted. I know he admires their basic dictatorship. I know he liked to do fundraisers with them over the years. I know he thought they were the first go-to for vaccines. But at this point, we would hope that he would learn a lesson and put the safety, security, and protection of Canadians above this fascination he has with the communist regime. So again, will he commit to ending this research and this cooperation with a regime that not only doesn't have our interest in mind, but actually wants to hurt Canada?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, from the beginning of my career onwards, I have worked with many Chinese Canadians and indeed had fundraisers with them. And the rise in anti-Asian racism we're seeing over the past number of months should be of concern to everyone. And I would recommend that the members of the Conservative Party, in their zeal to make personal attacks, not start to push too far into intolerance towards Canadians of diverse origins. We will continue to stand up to defend Canadians' interests, Canadians' security. We will continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep Canadians safe while participating in the global research community and stand up for tolerance and diversity.
Point of order. I was going to talk to someone speaking on the Zoom. Yeah. Excuse me, order. I just want to remind the honourable members, if they're going to have a discussion, please do it through the chair, not directly across. It seems to be the basic rules in this chamber. Although these days I kind of wonder about the rules myself, whether they're being followed. I'm not sure who it was. They didn't pop up. I'm not sure how they did it, but there was some voices coming out over the speakers from the outside, and that's the one that really does cause quite a bit of problem. So I just want to remind all the members who are joining us virtually to please not talk while someone is either asking a question or answering a question, because it really does make it difficult for everyone, not only here in the chamber, but at home. And there are a lot of people who are interested in hearing the questions and the answers. The Honourable Member for Portage Lisker.
Point of order.
No. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On a point of order.
There's no points of order unless it's a technical issue. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Only because it's not the first time Mr. Dennis has, in fact,
I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt the honourable member for Winnipeg North. That would be something that you bring up after the question period. So we'll just start the clock over again. The honourable member for Portage-Lisker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not surprised the Prime Minister just hurls insults of racism. It's his usual tactic. But, Mr. Speaker, I am not talking about Chinese Canadians. I am talking about a communist regime that nobody in the world trusts, except it would appear the Prime Minister of Canada. So I again will ask him about the communist regime and the military that supports that regime. Will he stop research cooperation with that military, seeing the danger they pose not only to Canada, but to the world? Yes or no?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, espionage and foreign interference pose real threats to Canadian research security, intellectual property, and business interests. This is a threat our government takes seriously. In March, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry requested the development of specific rules that integrate national security considerations into research partnerships. Public Safety and CSIS are leading outreach to universities to help them keep research safe. Canadian universities and research organizations must remain vigilant to protect their intellectual property. We haven't hesitated to support them. We will continue to.
The honourable member for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe.
Mr. Speaker, this week is Tourism Week. Normally, this week would be celebrated across the country as the tourism industry supports people from coast to coast. And there's a good example of many activities in tourism, but many people have had to stay home because of the pandemic, and the tourism industry has been one of the hardest hit. Can the Prime Minister tell this House how this government is supporting our tourism sector during the pandemic and after? Thank you. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Moncton Riverview Dieppe for highlighting the importance of the tourism sector in Canada. Tourism has shown great resilience in the face of COVID, and we have been there for them with over $15 billion in support. We also announced in Budget 2021 that we will invest an additional $1 billion so that they can be ready to welcome tourists as soon as it is safe to do so. I'd like to thank the tourism industry for doing everything in its power to protect Canadians.
Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, Major General Danny Fortin, the General in charge of Canada's COVID-19 vaccine rollout, is under investigation and has been removed from his position. The Prime Minister and his Defence Minister say they knew about these serious allegations weeks before he was suspended. Major General Fortin served closely in Afghanistan alongside General Vance and the Minister of Defence. Did the Prime Minister leave Major General Fortin in his position for weeks because he has another Afghanistan war buddy of the Defence Minister, just like General Vance?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we are committed to build a true culture of inclusion in our Canadian Armed Forces. We became aware of an ongoing CFNIS investigation involving Major General Fortin. As it is an ongoing investigation, I'm not able to comment further. But we remain focused on the vaccine rollout, with millions more vaccines arriving every week.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
So let's be clear, Mr. Speaker. General Vance served alongside the Defence Minister in Afghanistan, and the Prime Minister left him as Chief of Defence Staff for 3 years after the government was told of allegations of sexual misconduct. Major General Fortin also worked closely with General Vance and the Defence Minister in Afghanistan and was left in charge of her vaccine rollout for weeks after the Prime Minister learned of the investigation into his misconduct. But Admiral Art MacDonald, who never served with the Defence Minister, was shown the door within hours. So why is the Prime Minister helping the Defence Minister cover up sexual misconduct for his war buddies?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We know that our institutions are not living up to the needs of those who've experienced misconduct. That includes the military justice system. That's why we've taken concrete actions to address this. We named Lieutenant General Jenny Carignan as the Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture. We named Maurice Fish to conduct the third independent review of the entire military justice system. And we also recently appointed Louise Arbour to conduct an independent review of the treatment of sexual misconduct. These are just the first steps. We know there's much more to do, and we will do it it to ensure that every woman and man who serves in the armed forces is properly supported.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the claims by the Prime Minister that he takes sexual misconduct in the forces seriously is a myth, and that was destroyed by his Deputy Minister for National Defence. Jody Thomas said the Justice Deschamps report was treated as a mere checklist. The Prime Minister wrote in the Defence Minister's mandate letter to establish a workplace free from harassment, but we now know this Liberal government conspired to do nothing to implement Justice Deschamps' report. Will the Prime Minister admit that he and the Defence Minister failed to protect the women and men in our Canadian Armed Forces from sexual misconduct?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We know, Mr. Speaker, that going back decades, there has been a real challenge at the Canadian Armed Forces in terms of supporting people who come forward with allegations of misconduct, with unacceptable experiences, and that's why we need to change the culture. We have taken significant steps since we arrived in 2015 to improve the culture at the Canadian Armed Forces, but we recognize there is much more to do. We are committed to doing that. We're not going to point fingers or attack others for choices that they've made. We're going to make sure that the support is there for women and men who've actually served in the armed forces,
The honourable member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 2015, our government has been a champion for students and young Canadians. When the pandemic struck, we were there to make sure they had the supports that they needed. As we move towards a strong economic recovery from this pandemic, it is important that we make sure that young Canadians and students have the supports they need to continue going to school and starting their careers. Despite the fact that the Conservatives find this funny, Mr. Speaker, I would ask the Prime Minister to please inform the House about our government's efforts to support students and young Canadians through Budget 2021.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Kingston and the Islands for this important question and his hard work here in this House. Young Canadians are Canada's future, and they are at the centre of our recovery efforts. To date, we've invested more than $7.4 billion in pandemic supports to young Canadians and students. And Budget 2021 builds on this investment with an additional $5.7 billion so that young Canadians and students can keep up their studies, pay for tuition, and find jobs. I'm proud that this is one of the largest youth support packages in the world. We will continue to be there for young Canadians.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
We have learned that there is an alarming case of racism in the public service. Black public servants are exposed to harassment and to verbal violence at their workplace. Complaints were either ignored or the employer has spent thousands to buy silence over these cases of racism. Racism has to be eliminated. The Prime Minister, what should he do to fight racism, systemic racism in the public service? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have recognized from the onset that there is systemic racism in this country. We're working hand in hand with the Black community and with diverse and marginalized communities. We're working also within the public service to implement better hiring and retention practices for Canadians in racialized communities. We're always going to be there to promote diversity within our public service as well. And we recognize there's still much more work to do. We're going to be there to work hand in hand with professionals in the public service to include everyone. That is all the time we have for question period today.
That's all the time we have. Nous avons un rappel au règlement. L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
We have a point of order from the honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly, followed by the member for Kingston and the Islands. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's been consultation between the parties, and I think you'll find unanimous consent for the following motion. Did this House agree that Section 45 of the Constitution Act 1982 gives Quebec and the provinces exclusive jurisdiction to amend their respective constitutions, and acknowledge Quebec's willingness to enshrine in its constitution that Quebecers form a nation, that French is the only official language of Quebec, and that it is also the common language of the Quebec nation.
Que tous ceux qui s'opposent.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay.
D'accord.
Very well.
Nous n'avons pas le consentement unanime. Rising on a point of order for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Rising out of question period, and I know this issue tried to be addressed during question period, but we continue to have members that are participating virtually interject into the debate, and they're making comments which is making it extremely difficult for members who are participating virtually to participate. I know that on at least one occasion it was the member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan. He has routinely been called out by you or the chair occupant at the time to discontinue this practice, and I would encourage you to ensure by whatever means you have possible that those who are participating virtually have the ability to do so unimpeded by members who are participating in this manner.
Excusez. I believe the member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, is rising on a point of order as well, and then we'll come back to the chamber.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you'll indulge me to just briefly address the same point, because I think it's important for members to hear what is at stake in this conversation. So Canadians of Asian origin are speaking out about the impact on their lives of foreign state-backed interference.
Debate.
And Mr. Speaker, I note that I'm being heckled.
I'm going to interrupt. Order. 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 It sounds like it's getting into debate. I'm going to leave it. But on that note as well, if I can have the floor for a moment, thank you. When someone is out there, the chair usually determines whether it's debate or whether it's a point of order, and I appreciate the help, but I'd like a few seconds to determine what the member is about to say or saying so that we can determine whether it's debate or not. But I do appreciate the people shouting out and trying to help. It just makes it very disorderly, which leads us to the point of order from the member for Kingston and the Islands, where if we are here and someone does interject, it does make it difficult for everyone. So this is about respect for each other in the chamber, and that's what I'm asking. We have a point of order, un rappel au règlement de l'honorable.
From the honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent, to be followed by the honourable member for Winnipeg North. The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, I just want to remind you that it was the honourable member from Kingston and the Islands who talked about the member from Alberta who spoke earlier. I'm sorry, I don't remember his riding name. But it's entirely normal that that member be able to explain what he was doing. That's why I think he should be allowed to respond. On the government side, they seem to have lots and lots of people who are appearing virtually.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North is rising on a point of order.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's actually to the same point of order. I, over the last number of months, as many of my colleagues, tune in virtually and understand what our obligations are. If we want to get the attention of the chair, we put up our hand, and then we wait till we are ultimately recognized. During question period, on several occasions, there are members, in this particular case, it was the member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, that intentionally undoes the mute button in order to interject. It's one thing to do things by accident, but it's the same member on several occasions, and I think there needs to be a consequence.
I'm going to have to interrupt because it sounds like we're getting into debate again, and the point of order is not interjecting in the chamber, and we'll deal with that one a little bit at a time. And I want to remind all the members, it is on the individual member's honor that we're in here following the rules, and I want to encourage everyone or have everyone follow those rules so that we can run smoothly. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes is rising on a point of order.
Point of order, Chair. It seems as though in raising the point, which has been raised before by the member opposite and by the parliamentary secretary to the government House Leader, that it is in effect itself an attempt at a commentary or debate or to name and shame particular members. In this case, the member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan. However, while that member was responding to that point, the member for Milton, the member for Winnipeg North, also took their microphones off mute in the same way that the member for Kingston and the Islands said was inappropriate, and that the parliamentary secretary to the government House Leader and the member for Kingston and the Islands were seeking for the chair to sanction the member for doing just that. And so I defer always to the judgment of the chair occupant, and just find that perhaps, if there is to be a ruling in the opinion of the chair, that perhaps we just ask members to appeal to their honor and the regular traditions and customs of this place, and not look to tattletale every time they hear a member engage in what has been a traditional practice in this place for many, many years.
Wow, Rito is beating Kingston.
The honourable member for Kingston and the Islands is rising on that.
The intent of my rising to indicate this point of order, Mr. Speaker, was because of the fact that this particular member has done it repeatedly on a number of occasions. He routinely does this where he interjects. And it's not affecting the ability for those in the House to listen to the debate. What it is it's affecting those who are online, because suddenly the entire feed and the sound is eliminated and they're unable to hear anything. So the point here, Mr. Speaker, is those who are doing this repeatedly over and over, and I would encourage you to somehow enforce some kind of rule that would prevent this from continuing to happen.
Now we have two more people rising on points of order, and then we'll get on with the business of the day. L'honorable député d'Argenté,
The honourable member for Argenté, La Petite Nation? Yes, that's right. Go ahead. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the same point of order, the member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, is doing this repeatedly and deliberately. He will take his mic off mute and intervene. So there's a distinction between doing this once and doing it systematically. Here, he's not listening to the Speaker of the House. He's doing this repeatedly. And so this time, I would ask you if it's possible to review the video and to see how many times the member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, has deliberately contravened the rules.
Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan is rising on a point of order.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I was, with all due respect, interrupted when I was initially trying to make some comments on this matter. Many members have now intervened with various aspersions about myself, and I have been very interested in setting the record straight about some matters of the context, and I'll be in your hands for whether or not I can share that context. But as I was saying before, Canadians of Asian origin are speaking about the impact on their lives of foreign state-backed interference. And this is part of the racism being faced by Asian Canadians. That is pressure from foreign governments, in particular the government of China, to deny them with the freedom.
I'm going to interrupt the honourable member there. I mean, normally when we get up on a point of order, if I can have the attention of the chamber, please. Normally when we get up on a point of order, it's because a point of order, the process was broken. And if we're not staying within those parameters, it becomes debate. Now, I'm going to ask the honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, to go on. And remember that it sounds like he's debating something, and I'd like to know what the point of order that was disrespected was. I'll let him continue.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I will try to jump to it simply in this sense, that fighting racism, which is something that I know we all should wish to do, requires us to understand that Canadians are individuals, not extensions of foreign governments, and it's always important to make a distinction. And that is why what the Prime Minister said in question period today was itself deeply racist, because he was failing to make the necessary distinction.
With all due respect, Mr. Speaker, this is not a point of order.
Government.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt, but this is becoming a debate. It's not about the process itself. I'm going to have to cut the honourable member off. It being 3:25 p.m., pursuant to order made on Monday, January 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at second reading stage of Bill C-265 under private members' business. Convoquez les députés.
Call in the members.